I am incredibly excited. My dear friend Megan Brown is joining us today. Megan is physical therapy extraordinaire, but she brings physical therapy to a group setting with her classes at Mind the Mat in both Delray, which is technically Alexandria,
Yeah.
and then and then Arlington, Virginia. We have been friends a very long time. I always people are like, "Do you know Megan Brown?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
We
We
spent
know each other well.
9/11 together. Yeah.
Yeah. We know each other very, very well.
Very well.
People are like, oh,
But
wait, you're actually friends. And I'm like, Carrie and I have known each other for a long time.
very, very, there's actually, I've known you longer than my husband. Yes.
It's true. Me too, I think. Just about.
So I wanted to bring Megan on because we always talk about fun stuff, but wanted to dive in a little bit today. You don't get to talk much about your postpartum experience, I think, because your boys are a little bit older now. But I don't know about you, but like in the rear view, I'm a lot more reflective now that my kids are a little bit older. So tell us a little bit about kind of your foray and how you got into Mind the Mat, and then also your postpartum journey.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it's not funny actually, but the postpartum journey is actually what sparked what I do today. It was, and when you and I first met, I was in acute neuro rehab. So that there was not an inkling of working with women postpartum. And I think when you go through an experience yourself, it will either inspire you or light a fire because it wasn't necessarily what you had expected and it wasn't necessarily done right. It wasn't done in the way that you thought it could have. And I don't know about you. Well, I do know a lot about you, but like we both, I feel like I'm always trying to be better. I'm always trying to
Yeah.
to work towards another level of understanding of how to perform patient care, but also be a good mom and be a good citizen, et cetera, et cetera. So, my postpartum experience was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I wanted to have a natural delivery, drug-free, and I ended up having an emergency C-section. And, you're under care and you just think, hey, well, this is probably the way that it's supposed to go and I should pay attention to this because this practitioner knows way more than I do. And also when you hear we've got to get the baby out, you go, you get the baby out.
Yeah.
Like that's really what I care about is the safety of the baby. And so I had a C-section and I had this much care. I had zero amount of care after my surgery. Really no instruction other than only hold the baby. Like the basics, don't have sex until your checkup. And good luck. You
Yeah.
have your healthy baby here, and we'll see at 6 weeks. And I thought, oh, well, so I should be that super mom and I should be able to breastfeed and take care of my baby and sleep and allow people to come and visit because that's what should be done because people are bringing me food and wanting to come visit. And all the while my kid is not eating, he's not sleeping because I had to get up and pump and then try to feed the baby and oh wait, I have this incision that I need to be
Yeah.
careful of, and I also need to be able to take care of myself. Very long story short, it did not work out very well. It
They,
really,
I think if they told us that up front, we might not be so eager to sign up. Like I was counting pills after my first C. I was counting pills and
wow.
I was like, holy shit. Because
I,
to roll over and nurse at night and you don't know what the hell you're doing and you can't
right.
move. And yeah, yeah,
You really can't move, and you don't know that you can't move until you've done all the moving all day long, and then you can't walk up the stairs to go to bed. And that's when I knew something's wrong with me. I
yeah,
had such horrific pain in my incision. And that's when
yeah,
I ended up going to you as
yeah.
kind of more down the road. And I wish I'd known here we are we're PTs. And I wish I'd known I should go see Carrie like immediately after my C-section. And
But how
and if
many
we
women
don't
know
even
that
know,
now? Like,
even
and your
even with
oldest is
the
how old?
16,
Yeah.
he's
And there's
16.
still women that don't know that now.
They still don't know, even though, the ACOG came out with the guidelines and actually mentioned us by name. They were like,
Right.
go see physical therapists. So even being PTs, I didn't even know that I deserved care, number one, or that it was there and it should have been prescribed to me. It really should have been. It should have been recommended. And instead there was just nothing at all. And it really lit the fire to say, hey, we can do better. We as clinicians can do better, and we as moms, we deserve better. Our children deserve it. Our partners deserve it. Just in general, as human beings, we deserve it. And it really it started as kind of some anger, and then it just kind of worked into, hey, instead of being angry about this, what if I just actually tried to do something about it?
And that's what I love
And
about you. You totally put your money where your mouth is, and you're like, "So, I'm gonna do this thing,"
yeah,
and you
yeah.
created Mind the Mat.
Yeah, and the first class on the schedule was a postpartum focused mommy and me class, the class that I could never get out the door. It was an 11 o'clock class at another yoga studio, and it was called Mommy and Me Yoga. And all my friends were like, hey, meet us at this yoga class. I'm like, I can't make it there on time. And they just actually didn't understand what that meant. And I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
get my stuff together and get to this studio in Old Town where there's no parking and then walk my, 10-pound, 15-pound baby upstairs with a C-section.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And so one of the first things we did is we started this mom focused postpartum Pilates-ish class. And it was on the first floor, and there was parking right behind the building. And there were no barriers other than sign up and get there on time. Even people who got there late, I was like, come on in, mama. You made it here. You
There's
got your hair in a
always
bun.
somebody that got
Yep,
stuck with a dirty diaper or something blow out at the
totally.
back or
Blowout out the back.
Yeah.
Or just people who didn't even sign up and they were like, I hear this is where the baby class is. I'm like, it sure is.
Yep.
Come on in. It's actually
Yeah.
about you and the baby. We make the baby comfortable and we entertain the baby, but the class is about you. And it was when people would read the description or hear that the class was about them, it was it was almost shock and then just appreciation, like, wow, you mean this class is for me? It's not me bonding with my baby, which that sure we can sneak that in and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there wasn't anything out there that was
No, there wasn't.
nothing, a post pregnancy targeted exercise class for
Yeah.
mom,
Well,
and it exploded. Yeah.
and one that even I dare say this, like, you could speak in a very direct way to, "Hey, you just had your C-section, maybe we should start here," and I
Yes.
went to a different one at a different studio closer to where I live because again, getting out of the house.
Yep.
And I remember some of the things they had us do, and I was probably 8 weeks post C-section. I'm like, "Nope,
It
nope,
hurts.
nope."
Mm-mm. I'm not gonna do a wheel. I'm not doing a back
No, and I
bend.
remember and I think a lot of PTs feel like this sometimes is like you go in and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna not do a lot of stuff because I know that I shouldn't." But I think where's that line between, "Okay, I shouldn't, but I gotta start doing something and I need
Something.
some guidance." And I think you guys very much provided a space for, "You're here, let's start to do something."
That
Um,
and we have limited time that we can devote to ourselves. What are the top 5 things that I could do in this limited time? And that comes from how the class is structured. What are the key movements that a postpartum body woman person needs, right? Like what I remember going to I had a similar experience that you had, and it was like this kind of outdoor class, mom focused, and we were doing biceps. And I was like,
that's the
that
dumbest
is
thing.
the last
That's just
thing.
lazy.
And just biceps, no, no, no triceps, no. And I was like, that was the last time I went to that class because I was like,
Yeah.
I got here and there are a slew of things that we can do that are so key in recovery, in specific strength training, motor control and awareness, pelvic floor awareness, etc. And and we're doing biceps. And I
Right.
just thought there is so I got so that actually I was not angry. I was inspired because I was like, there is so much more we can do for people in a group setting, and we can cast this wide net in all of the patient education that we will do in the clinic one-on-one. We can spread that information to an entire group, and then that the goal is that that trickles down to their
Right.
friend who's having a baby, and on and on and on until it does become this word of mouth phenomenon. But there are still these small key elements that are getting missed. Like
Yeah.
even me telling one of my best friends, telling her, "Oh, you can get physical therapy. You know that it is recommended across the board by ACOG." And then she asked me a question just a couple weeks ago. She goes, "I've got this pain right here." And I was like, "But wait, did you go see Carrie?" She goes, "Well, no, because I didn't have any leaking." And I was like, "Oh,
You know
okay."
what? I was just thinking about that after we or right before we hopped on because the most DMs that I get on social, it's not about leaking. It is
Yeah.
about prolapse. It is about diastasis recti.
Mhm.
Women are willing to accept the leakage because they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, it doesn't really bother me," or this
It's
or
just
that.
part of it.
Right, exactly. It's so funny because having leaked before multiple times in
Mhm.
postpartum, like, I don't enjoy that. But
No.
I think, and then we talk about barriers, like, what are the barriers that are up still that,
Mhm.
whether it's, thought process or, um, logistics or whatever that is that we're still expected that, okay, that's still okay, you know?
Right. And where did the disconnect happen when my friend is coming to my classes, and I even talk about this in just my mainstream classes, I talk about
Right.
it. And that's what Megan must have said something in class because I got like 5 mind the mat appointments all of a sudden. But even communicating, there's still there's the element of we're not deserving of it.
Yeah.
There it is still there, even very aware moms. She does like
Yes.
my friend reads all these articles and she's in all these groups, even very aware moms, aware of their body, with support, with a nanny, etc., with a bestie who's a PT who's
Right.
preaching. She's, "Well, I'm not leaking, so I just didn't go ahead and make the appointment." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh." And I put it back on my, what could I have said
Right.
that would have empowered her to understand, you don't have to leak.
Yep.
It's just a checkup. You
Yep.
birthed a human. You
I get
birthed
this
a
I get
human.
the same thing with Kegels. What'll happen is, like, we'll go through and evaluate, like, literally, we'll sit down, light bulbs are going off, we'll make changes in, symptoms literally in minutes just by changing strategies or things like that. And I'll give them maybe 3 things to do because I don't wanna overwhelm anybody, and I wouldn't do anything more than 3, to be honest with you. And then they'll sit here and be like, "Okay, is there anything else that I didn't answer for you, or is there any questions that you have? I know I talked a lot. Can anything that you need to know?" So do I need to do Kegels? Like, I literally just will hand them the answer. It's getting to be predictable at this point. It's getting to be predictable, and
Yeah.
I am preemptively answering that question, but I actually need to go back and be like, "What made you ask that question?"
Yeah. That's helpful to us in
Because
communicating.
what the hell got driven in our
Yeah,
brains at
what
what age that said that, if great, you just handed me the world and I'm all better, but do I still have to do this stupid thing? Like,
right.
where, like what you said, like, where's the disconnect on
Where's the
this?
disconnect? And it's
Like,
and it is, and I obviously, when you're looking at very aware clientele of their bodies,
yeah,
of what their resources are, clearly there's something I could say that is different. And up the chain to the physicians,
yeah,
clearly there's something they could say, even if, ooh, I'm going to put something out there, even if they said, contact a pelvic health therapist from now on with, like, that would
with
be great,
a-
or
with any
contact
of
this
those
group,
questions, right?
right, with
Yeah.
any of those questions. And wouldn't we all be like, yay, this
So
is amazing.
I don't know if you heard this, it happened in probably the last couple of weeks. Some colleagues within the Academy of Pelvic Health, they were pretty instrumental in, I think there's a congresswoman from definitely Delaware, and I can't remember where the other one's from. And they put a bill on the House floor, like it's legit, like it's
Mm,
in everything now. And it's one of those committees. It's like energy and something else that doesn't look like it should have anything to do with pelvic floor, but that's our government. And it's proposing and specifically highlights pelvic floor PT, and
wow.
also in the importance of it in fourth trimester, and then also addresses it from a Medicaid perspective, because as you know, as goes Medicare and
Mm,
Medicaid, as goes insurance and so on. But just, whether it gets combined with something else and pushed through, or at least if they
yeah,
have a conversation about it, again, like it's all that combination. It's not just what your OB tells you. It's not just what your
mhm,
friend tells you. It's, oh gosh, do I need to go make an appointment somewhere? Does my insurance cover this? Does it, like, there's so many things that are
right,
wrapped up
yep,
in it. Um, that, but I think I'm going to start asking now, like, what made you ask that? Or after all of this, what made you still curious about that? Because I think there's either that's really, really incredibly deeply ingrained
right.
that we need to unpack that, or yeah, or I'm missing the boat on something.
There and the same with prenatal. It
Yeah,
was I start asking that question when right before I start a prenatal Pilates class.
yeah,
I'll say, "Well, how did you find us?" And it is 95%. Well, in the beginning, it was 95% Google search.
yeah,
And we pop up right away but they're searching prenatal yoga and they're searching prenatal
yep,
exercise.
exactly,
And
exactly.
and then we pop up, and then it became just from casting the net, it just became word of mouth.
Yeah,
And I think that that's why the things that you do on social media and all other like accounts and what any legislation could do is just like having a voice and just
yes,
talking about it over and
and
over and
over. Yep,
over again, because just because maybe we did that one post last month on leaking during running. I'm like, go check, talked about leaking during running. I guess I'll do that one in a year. No, it needs to be probably every
I know.
Thursday.
I know. We're like, no, we've checked that box. No, no,
Yeah,
honey, it
no, we
probably is like you piss your pants Thursday or
right, right.
something.
It's
I don't
you've
know.
got piss your pants Thursday. That sounds great. Right.
We'll do a
P
collaborative reel on
Y
that one.
P T PYPT, piss your pants Thursday. That's a great collab right there. But just having a platform,
Yeah,
right? And your platform has grown so much, but what you do is so behind closed doors.
yeah,
And to be able to open that door to um, an audience that is there to listen, and it's clinicians, and it's right the off mic convo that we had before, like it's clinicians, and it's moms, it's people in the space who are in it right
yeah,
now, and asking that population, hey, how did you get here? Because how can I help others get here as
yep.
well?
Yeah. And I think it's funny. I mean, you know how PTs are. Like, we like to stay in our lane, and the PTs like to have physician referral and things like that. And I mean, you always say you're like, I'm PT, but in a group setting. And I
Hmm.
think some people are like, no, you're not. But it really truly is. And I
Yeah.
think that's, I mean, I want to segue in a second to like what everyone was forced to do, or forced to make the decision in the pandemic, was like, we need to get out of our heads on what
Hmm.
care looks like, and it
Hmm.
needs to look as many possible different ways as we can come
Right.
up with. And for you
We've
guys, I
been
mean,
sitting
yeah,
But we've been sitting on all these secrets for years.
I
It's like when
know.
we
It's
sat in
insane.
PT school,
Yeah.
we've sat on those secrets until social media came out. We
Yeah.
sat on secrets forever. And I one day was just like, shame on you. Why am I not sharing this stuff with
But
everyone that
there
walks in my door?
I still see PTs ask, if I put information out on social media, is that considered medical advice, and am I going to get sued? And I was like, at this point, like, the horse is out of the gates. Like,
It's yeah, that is there a horse?
It
Like, it's
no, I mean, always, cover your ass, like, caveat, entertainment purposes only,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. But, like,
Yes.
if you've got somebody that they have no medical background and they're putting shit out there, like, we actually know what the hell we're talking about.
Right. Right.
So,
Exactly. And
but
there's nothing that we're putting out there that is negligent,
right, exactly,
you know?
exactly. Now for you guys, I remember distinctly, as soon as the pandemic hit, you guys pivoted faster, I think, than
Overnight.
like it was
Mhm.
mind-boggling how quickly you
Yeah, it was
switched,
fast.
and then literally watched you hustle for, you know, 2 years.
Yeah.
How did the last couple of years just reshape how you impacted and reached out to your pregnant and postpartum community?
Yeah, that's such a great question because we were forced to do that and we purposely did it quickly. Like it was very important to us to never say the word closed. In fact, every email that we put out, there would be an inadvertent, we're closing for this amount of time, and I'd be like, get closed out of there. And our manager was like, "What do you want me to say?" To say we are open to invert to virtual classes and online. We have shifted our offerings to online, and that was the same. I was knee deep in a series. So I was lucky that I'd already had my start of my prenatal Pilates series. I think I'd taught 2 classes, and because we could smell this coming, I mean, remember when we were in Colorado together?
I do. I remember having a conversation in the airport because somebody we knew had hung out with somebody who just came back from Singapore, and we're like, "Ha ha,
Yeah.
yeah."
Da, da, da. Remember we were at the airport eating nachos, drinking margaritas, like, da, 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 well, the world's
Oh
about to
my
fall apart,
god,
and
I
it's
totally
right?
forgot that. Oh,
Yes.
I wish I could have some nachos and margaritas right now.
I wish we'd known as we were
And
sipping those
that
margs.
freedom, I would have had another marg. I would have
There you
had
go.
several.
Now
Yes.
we know, live to the fullest. So
Wow.
I was in the middle, luckily, of a series. I teach my prenatal in a very specific way. I take a group and I progress them over 6 weeks. I'd love to do it for 8 weeks, but schedules. So
Yeah,
I
no, I
was
hear you.
about 2 episodes into a prenatal Pilates series. So at least I knew people. I'd gotten to see them move. And that's the important thing as a PT is, right? Have you seen your client move? Do you see how they respond to your cues and your hands-on assists, et cetera, and whatever therapeutic exercise you're giving them? And so with that group, we went immediately into live virtual on Facebook. And even though I couldn't see them, I knew them by name. I knew their movement programming. I knew what exercises they'd already done. And
Yeah.
actually, they loved it because they were connected via Facebook with their groups, remembering people's names, remembering like who they were next to, and they could not only do that class once a week, which is the model. The in-person model was every Monday night, and then I'd see them the next week.
Mhm.
Well, they could do that class and they could do bits and pieces of that class
Yeah.
throughout the whole week. Or maybe they didn't have time to do the full 45 minutes. They would do the standing portion, then they do the mat portion the next day, then they do the pelvic floor exercises the following day, and then I'd coach them to integrate it at the end of the week so that when I did the next progressive class, they were all caught up and ready.
Yeah.
And so that was a really neat thing to see in a very scary time, because you were seeing these innovations happening in front of you by accident because you had
Completely.
no
Completely.
freaking choice. You had not a single choice. And
Well, you
so in the
did.
moment, you're
You could have
innovating.
quit. You could have
I
quit.
could have, right. And I would have left 20 moms like, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I would have left 650 members on their own and without any purpose or any guidance in movement.
Yeah.
And the mommy and me class was a little bit different. The postpartum focus class was for me as the practitioner, it was really hard to go from I don't when I teach, I don't do the class with them. Probably
Mhm.
what you see on the internet is me doing like my crazy boot camp when I'm doing it with them. But anytime there's something really clinical, I am obviously watching, giving a cue, doing hands-on, and assisting in the moment, but making sure that I'm guiding them through every single step. When you do it virtually, you have to do the movement. And
Yes.
so as the practitioner, I was exhausted on top of being emotionally and physically drained. I was
Yes.
having to show up on camera and actually perform the moves. And
It
so,
is. It's performance too, because you're
oh
trying to bring
man,
some positivity. I was totally drained with telehealth because it's actually harder, I think, to do this, and you're having to
yes,
think because you can't put your hand on anybody.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. You
Yeah.
have to be on and you have to also pretend like the world's not falling apart.
Oh, we talked a lot
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. Are you okay?
Are you okay? I mean, I'd have to show up like, okay, moms, let's get your mat out. And I mean, because can you imagine if you showed up and your instructor was like, so my kid's on virtual school right now and he couldn't get into his English class, and which all true stories. And I just have to be like, okay, good luck, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to work.
Yeah,
And
no,
they're like,
my 6-year-old
oh,
would be in the other room with her snacks that she would literally, like, spread freaking everywhere. I would come out, I'm like, "What in God's name, and why aren't there rats?" Like,
right.
I'm like, "But yeah,
There will be
everything's
in a couple
totally
weeks.
fine," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the
So,
thing to remember though too, and what's so normal to us now is, Zoom calls and meetings and, you buy this online program or you do this or do that. It's so very, very normal now that
mhm,
then, and again, we forget time has no meaning right now. Like no one was doing that. No one would think to do a meeting online.
right.
Like no one would
No.
think to do a class online.
We would
Bless your
be doing
heart.
this in
Yeah.
person together right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, bless your heart, you had to deal with all the crap that comes with Zuckerberg and,
Oh, yeah.
music,
Yeah.
copywriting crap because they
Yeah.
hadn't figured that out
Oh
yet. And
my
you're like,
gosh, it was a
I
mess.
need to have a class with
I
music.
just need to show up for my people. Yeah, but what's funny about how it progressed into changing the way that we serve people is my prenatal class went from I would only allow about 18 to 20 people in the studio, and then it grew to about 30 to 40
Yes.
people. And I had someone from Pakistan who was State Department. I
Yep.
had someone from Texas. I had someone from Canada. I had people all over the world because they now had exactly what you were just talking about. We would never have thought of doing an online class and creating a community because, well, we have these walls and you come in and this is what you do.
Right.
And how would I be able to see them? And because we were forced, we had to come up with different ways to teach and different ways to cue. And that some of it developed in the moment, and then some of it really developed from strategy, like just watching film after film. I sound like a football coach, but literally watching how I was delivering the
Yep.
cues, watching um, how people would respond um if I did the class watching back, I was like, ah, that was a horrible cue, and oh, I need to change my angle. Um
Yeah, you
and
could be a
so
film director after all this.
right, right. And so funny enough, we have been in development um with an app company who we just felt like we needed to grow up, and we had always thought about this but didn't devote the time to it. And so we're launching an app in the next couple months that is it's we're starting with our prenatal and postpartum programs, our exercise programs. But then we're pushing into later on as we phase it out into our therapeutic programming. So like we do a therapeutic Pilates program, we do therapeutic yoga. We've done a lot of mindfulness for stress reduction. So we have like really great experts that teach within the
Yes.
walls of Mind the Mat. But going back to that really important point of, hey, like why are we sitting on this information? What
Right.
let's spread the information to as many people as we can. And that way we are constantly I have a child who is knocking on the door. Is this
It's
totally
all good.
unprofessional for me to
It's
okay.
totally fine.
Just to pause
It
for just a
happens.
moment.
It
This is
happens.
like normal for us, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that gonna stay in the podcast or is that gonna
Mm,
be is
I
that
have
gonna
an
be
editor,
edited
it's all
out?
good.
Oh my
It's all
gosh.
good. We
Some
can
of it
keep
would
it
be
in. We can edit it out.
so
It's up to Lara. It's all good.
that would be just like a good like reality of like this
Well,
is what it's like to be a
but
working
I
mom.
but here's the thing though, and I think that brings up a really good point, is I think in the beginning we were still trying to kick our kids out of the room and we were still trying to keep it
Yep.
perfect. And now I'm just like, freaking screw this. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm in my office and I have
Yeah.
a babysitter, God bless Marymount University PT students and who are
Yay.
babysitters. But I mean, I think we were looking, the expectation was you would have a space and it would be perfect. And the fact of the matter is it's messy and you're going to have
Mhm.
somebody interrupt your class. And I think, the fact of where we are in the world, it's a very transient area. We have military, we have State Department, we have people that live here, experience your community, and then live elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
So it really was that perfect storm of, we want to be able to serve you wherever you are in the
Wherever you
world.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had so many so much feedback from people that were grateful. Like they kept saying thank you and I was like, "We're in the middle of a shit show and you're thanking me?" Like
Yeah.
I I I got kicked off 3 times because of Zuckerberg because of like ambient background music.
Right.
And I'm like, "Seriously, you picked up Enya? Like how did you even pick that up? Next time I'm just going to turn it off."
Because he's listening all
But
the time, by the way.
yes. So, but we would have people like literally from someone from Texas who had
Yeah.
moved and she's like, "I was so sad when we had to move because I was gonna miss out on your prenatal program, but like I get to experience it."
Yeah.
And so instead of wallowing in grief of like literally our business at some point was like hemorrhaging and everything's fine now, but instead of wallowing in that grief, it was an opportunity. And
Yeah.
so moving on to like growing up and leaving Facebook and coming up with a platform that is even more professional than Zoom because Zoom had, although you
It's
can
got
see people,
it's
it's
got
got
its
its
issues too.
problems.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. And so we're really looking at trying to um, better our platform so that it is, again, it's taking away as many barriers as possible. And so I'll be reaching out to you, Carrie, because you
You just asked me, I'm like, I'll say yes to whatever, so it's
you
all
do,
good.
you do, you do. It
No,
doesn't
but
take much, a little twist of the arm.
nah, not even that. No, I've had so many moms now, like when we talk about like if they've come from Mind the Mat, they know if they're pregnant. Okay, I have this virtual option, I have this in-person option, and obviously, with vaccination and all sorts of crazy stuff, like, and moms don't know if they can get out of the house. So I think,
Right.
the fact that you guys have continued to focus on meeting moms where they are, like,
Yeah,
that's
it's a good
that's
way to
one of
put
the
it.
best things to come out of this, because I do know some places they're like, "Oh, no, we got rid of
Mhm.
that we're not doing that anymore." Same thing with PTs. Some PTs are like, "No, no, no, we're not gonna do, virtual anymore. We're not gonna do telehealth." And for me, I'm like, "No, no, no, because when your family gets COVID, that's 2 weeks. So I don't want you
Right,
to lose anything. You're putting yourself to the side. Let's just flip. I'll talk to you here. We'll work through things, and
right.
you're not having to put yourself on the back burner again and again and again, because that's always what happens is you can't get out the door. Oh, I can't go. Or everybody's sick. Oh,
Truly.
you have to miss your stuff. And I sincerely hope that that's the one beautiful thing that's come out of this shit show, is that at least we're starting to meet moms where they are, which lately.
Right. And another that's a good point of like think about acute postpartum. Like you've just
Yeah.
come home from the hospital. They've told you that breastfeeding is easy and then you've discovered that it is not. But you want to do it and you're trying your best to do it. And oh wait, you have this incision. And oh wait, your husband went back to work. Your doctor told you you cannot exercise for 6 weeks. Just that you
Now what?
can't exercise
Right.
for
What does that
6
even mean?
weeks.
Yeah. What does that even
People
mean?
still to me, they'll
I
say,
know.
"Well, I'll see you at my after my 6-week checkup." And I go, come on back here. Let's have a talk. I
I
can see you before that."
yes, and I
And
think
yeah,
that's one of the best things about this is, like, I'll have moms that we'll plan their postpartum visit. Usually, we'll schedule it 3 to 4 weeks after their due date, because things really rarely work out on time. And inevitably somebody will have a C-section that's unplanned, and they'll email me and be like, oh, well, I had my C-section, so now can we bump this? I'm like, no,
No.
no. I will see you for telehealth, or if you want to come in, that's great. But
Right.
like, who's talking to you about nursing positions with a C-section? Who's
Right.
talking to you about basic C-section care? I can also help you find, like I have a great friend, the Balanced Boob, that she does virtual lactation consulting and
Oh,
stuff.
love
Like,
her.
she's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And like, let me help you get the resources that you need. And I don't think there's an awareness of, there's a lot we can provide in that
Right.
first period of time. Even just, hey, why don't you sign up for the Mind the Mat class is coming. You may not be
Mhm.
comfortable going out now, but maybe you could start virtual. So just
Mhm.
making sure moms have those resources lined up. And I love having those conversations when moms are pregnant, because when that baby comes, it hits the fan, you know.
Right. And
Um,
why was I spending so much time looking to see how big the baby was at this stage?
I
Like, I spent so much
know,
time on my actual pregnancy.
I
That
know.
was fine. I was lucky my first one, not my second one, but I spent so much time researching pregnancy that I didn't expect
It's
when
it's
no
like
one told
it's
me either.
it's like the wedding, like you do all the stuff for the wedding and you forget you're married to this person.
Marriage. Oh yeah, I'm marrying this guy. That's
That
a
can be
good
a different
analogy.
podcast.
There we go. Can I be the first guest? Um,
Yeah.
so I
So,
think that there's still more work to do. There's still more
yeah.
work to do.
So what can we do as providers, and providers that are used to being in their lane of in person, you show up to my gym or you show up to my office, or I'm used to you coming at 6 weeks. Like, how do we um help moms get back to activity sooner, less barriers, more low-hanging fruit? Like, how do we break these confines that have been kind of put there, and really be like, no, there's a lot to offer. There's a lot you can do before, the OB says, hey, you're okay to exercise, and they really
Yeah.
have no sense other than you hit, 75% soft tissue healing.
So what I so the very complicated answer is there has to be a lot of change.
Yeah.
But the very simple answer is everything that we're doing now, but continue to do it. Continue to talk about it. Continue to put out programming. Continue to Well, I'll tell you what I did is I bribed basically the PT students when I was teaching therapeutic exercise. I said, hey, if you're not interested in pelvic health, that's great. I wasn't either. I was interested in neuro, like maybe you're interested in orthopedics. But I was like, think about how much money, think about how much money you could make if you offer a post-pregnancy exercise program.
Yeah.
Just hire someone, hire a yoga teacher, hire a Pilates teacher that you have trained in some therapeutic exercise. And I'm like, have this happen in your clinic. And then some of the people like who were like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
not interested in women's health or post-pregnancy or pelvic health. But I was like, how can I get, oh, money. So I just started talking about money. I
Oh
was like,
god.
think about how much money
I guess they're
how
looking
much
at paying their
revenue.
loans. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, think
Yeah.
of the revenue you could make if you had these specialized programs. And I said, let's not stop there. What if we did total knee classes? What if we did total hip classes? What if we did caregiver classes? And then they were like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting way to think of it. And so that's where I started is with the PT students. I was like,
They're
think
poor.
of
It's not their
how much
fault.
money I looked at Sky. I was like, I'm selling my soul to the devil right now. But if this is what I have to do
Yeah.
to get people interested in doing postpartum exercise and offering this step
Yeah.
that bridges the gap, right? We talk about this a lot, of there's just this gap in care that needs to be addressed. And like that's actually we were talking to someone recently in marketing when we're developing this app, and she's just like, tell me your story. And she actually told us that the name mind the mat has a negative connotation. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? And as she told us like her opinion, which she's spot on why it has a bit of a negative connotation, I started talking about the gap between care for women who've had a baby and been pregnant, and or people who've been pregnant and just going back to their merry ways. And I was like, we bridge the gap. Mind the mat actually bridges the gap in some of our programming, but we could do better. We need to do better. And we need to bridge that gap in that 6-week period where people are
Yeah.
like, well, I guess I'll go back and get my checkup. And then they come back to us and they say, they actually didn't even like assess any of
Look,
my
they
muscles.
don't
And I
look
was like,
anymore.
oh,
It's so
they
sad.
don't, honey.
No.
No,
Yeah.
no one they are like, are you on birth control? And are you bleeding anymore? And maybe
Yeah.
there's an internal exam. I had one because I had such horrific incision pain that I had an
Mm.
internal exam. And I was like, it's actually
Over here, right?
superficial. And
Yeah.
I'm sounding like I'm ridiculing the doctor, and I actually am, because after I told him how debilitated I was, that at the end of the day, after caring for my child, after trying to feed my child, after trying to do the dishes, that I am having trouble walking upstairs. His follow-up question to me was, "What are you doing for birth control?"
Yeah.
And in that moment, I said that we have some work to do. We
Yeah.
like, let's just take it out of their hands. That's fine. They delivered my beautiful, healthy baby. Let's just take it out of their hands and let's us do the work.
Yeah.
We could, there's nothing in our license that says we cannot treat
Yeah. Well,
this 6-week period.
I think the only way I've been able to wrap my head around it with a degree of compassion and not rage is to, I don't know, look at our expectations for what's supposed to happen in that visit and what
Mm,
essentially a physician, what are they able to do in that point? They're
yeah.
supposed to screen you for postpartum depression,
Mhm.
fine. They're supposed to make sure that you're not having Irish twins, great.
Mhm.
Um, and they're supposed to make sure that you're not bleeding out and going to die. And really, what can a physician, like what tools do they have? They can either refer out, they can give you medication, they can provide surgery, they can order imaging, like, and they have less than 5 minutes to do that. And so
Right.
I think when I put it back to people that way, the only expectation I have for them is if they hear anything that remotely sounds like anything muscular or activity related, that instead of being like, "Oh, that's just what it is," or or jumping and skipping it and going straight to the birth control question, like, you need to talk to somebody who can address that for you. And I think when I realized that, and when I explain that to people, that then they go in with expectations, because inevitably I have that conversation with patients about, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? I'm like, because you
Mhm.
expected them to know something
Right.
that's not their wheelhouse. That's my
Correct.
wheelhouse.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
an OB clearing you to run, that's like, I don't know who your neighbor is, but that's like your neighbor clearing you to run. It's
Yeah.
like, assuming your
They
neighbor's
know
not
nothing about
and
it.
yeah,
It's not
they
their fault.
don't.
Yeah.
And 6 weeks, it's 75% soft tissue healing. That's it. That's it. And do I
Mhm.
have people that run sooner? Yeah. And are they okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also like, there's caveats to that. But I
Right.
think the sooner we realize and change our expectations, but again, then it starts with the awareness. So that goes back to what you're saying. You're like, we need to continue to have these conversations. I chatted
Mhm.
earlier today with I didn't know she was like a TikTok star. I just like, oh, you're really funny. I like
What's
you.
that? I'm just
Um,
kidding.
she goes by I'm Mrs. Space Cadet, and she's freaking hysterical. And she was talking about when you run, there's certain shorts that, like, when you run and you're kind of sticky and sweaty, like your thighs gobble up your shorts. So like your shorts start going up your
Oh,
thighs. And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I saw it. I was just freaking hysterical. And we were talking about, she did a paid ad for Always Discreet. And it was really interesting. You'll have to go look at the comments, and some people were like, yeah, this is great. And a lot of women were like, oh, I got PT and it was great. Other people said, oh, I got PT, it didn't work. And then you get this slew of physical therapists like, you should get that checked out. I'm like, no, people, like, we're having a conversation about it. This is the important thing, that like they chose her because she's funny and she's relatable, and we can start opening this conversation and talking about it. Because if you don't talk about it, if you keep having expectations that, OB is going to fix it or this or that, if we don't start talking about these options, nothing's going to change. It's not going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it.
And same thing with the haters on, again, any social media where they're talking about anything pelvic or however they're bringing attention to it. And some in our profession are like, well, that's not really true. I'm like, okay, it's a soundbite. It's freaking social. Give me a break. But we're talking about it, which 16 years ago, we weren't.
We were not.
No.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a good way to look at it. Like and in the beginning, we can help out as well. Like I know several of my clients and teachers included have seen you for a pre-birth visit when they're pregnant. And of course, we see a ton of them for prenatal yoga and prenatal Pilates. And so how we have that conversation in the moment, we don't have to sit and have a conversation in the middle of a class. I can have you doing some spinal balance exercises, giving you some cues, and then weave in some information as you're doing that. And then maybe, there's kinesthetic learning, there's, auditory, like some people are going to get it, some people aren't, but continuing to talk about
exposure,
what to expect. Yes, exposure, and make sure no matter who you are, what your birth experience was, whether you're leaking or not, whether you feel 100%, whether you feel 50%, make sure you schedule your physical therapy visit, right? Whether it's with Carrie, whether you're coming into a class and you just want to get a quick screen. And that's usually where actually a lot of my referrals, I refer out all the time, is people say, can you just look at this real quick? And, someone else that just did a quick little shoulder eval. I was like, oh, you got a rotator cuff. You need to go see my friend Mike.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? How'd you know? It's like, I feel it down here. I'm like, it's rotator cuff. Go, get out. Next person. But like, even just that took me literally 30 seconds to say, hey, you really should go see a PT ASAP to just nip that in the bud. Same with moms, or same with, actually, what I miss is that the interaction with the babies, because I was able to screen babies for torticollis and plagiocephaly just when they're bringing their babes in. And that is not in the way that you say, oh, your baby has a flat spot on their head, you need to go take them to this pediatric PT. It was never like that. It was always in a very kind, gentle, passive way of just asking questions and not shaming moms like, oh, you should really get that look at.
Well,
she just got out of bed today for the
right. You're like,
right. Yeah.
Well, I dare say, I mean, my mind has shifted a little bit. Just talking to a lot of people who don't necessarily have access to in-person PT or even telehealth for that matter. And that's where I think, what you're providing fills a gap, because if I live in Podunk, middle of nowhere, and again, that's where I grew up, so that's kind of what I come from. If it's 70 miles to the nearest provider, I can't do that on a regular basis. But if I know that this class, it's led by a physical therapist, it's a good class, I'm going to get something out of it. And that's where, again, I think it's one of the gifts of COVID. There's a lot that aren't gifts, but if we can access, and we can have a whole conversation about broadband and needing access in the US, but if we can access more women, and that's where I've stepped back a little bit from, you need to see a pelvic floor PT, to be like, if you can't do that, here are other options that we can still get you care. And it may be a postpartum coach or a trainer, it may be a virtual online program, it may be something, but we need to get care, period. And I think that's going to be a step in the right direction, so that we can flush out a lot of these situations where moms just need good basic education. And I think that's going to go a long way. And I think that's where you guys, I'm excited to see the app. Like, that's where I think there's going to be a huge opportunity to provide more care without barriers, for sure.
Yes,
So I'm pumped for
absolutely.
that. All right.
Yep.
So what does being active postpartum mean to you? What did it mean before you had kids, and what does it mean now?
I think it means the same. And it really is what makes you feel good. What
Yeah.
makes you feel good. And whether, like, let's runners, right? That's your wheelhouse. Runners. I mean, running is important to people. And if someone has told you that you can't run, that is that's devastating. So to be able to do what you love and what
Yeah.
makes you feel good. Maybe it's just being able to get out of the house and meet someone for lunch. That is an active postpartum mom, because that is what makes you feel normal, right? And so we're talking like initial stages. You do what makes you feel good, because I mean, this has rocked your life. And so that's what happened to me. I know for sure I had postpartum depression. I know it. And it was missed. It was missed by my family. It was missed by me. It was missed by my caregivers. And I know that I had it because when I had my second baby, I felt differently. I
Different.
just felt
Yeah.
differently. And so I think that I think in that moment, it became clear to me that you do whatever it takes, whatever it is that makes you feel good, and that's your activity level.
Yeah.
And then down the road, like, right, we're always postpartum. We're constantly
Right.
postpartum. So,
So I said you
you know,
might have big boys, but you're still postpartum.
I'm postpartum. Which someone in my class said, yeah, that means after separation. I was like, oh my goodness. I
Oh,
never knew the Latin, it's post, right?
oh,
After separation.
yeah.
So you are
Learn something new every day.
constantly learn something new. You're constantly postpartum. And so for me, like, I'm definitely um I definitely get a little on the side of technical. I still want people to do what they love, but there's always the balance. Like,
Yeah.
if you love Peloton, yay, that you love it. You get up, you get your sweat in. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 60. You love it. My husband has a Peloton tread. He loves it. But if he comes to me, he's going to come to me and he's going to say, this hurts, that hurts. I'm like, okay, great. I know you love your Peloton tread. Just do these 3 things and weave them in so that you can continue to do what you love. And
Yeah.
that's what's important, is that there's no one
No one
special,
thing. Yeah.
awesome workout that you should do as a postpartum person. What you
Yeah.
should do is what makes you happy,
I love
but
that.
then be aware of how you balance your body so that you can continue to run. You can continue to do, one of my clients just did like the Tough Mudder a
Mhm.
couple months ago. Like, you can continue to do the things that you love to do, because it's that kind of activity that keeps us healthy and happy
Totally.
and live long. Yeah.
Totally. And you're so good, because I refuse to treat my husband because he always asks, "Is this supposed to hurt, or are you mad at me?" So
The answer is all of the above.
that's why I refer out. So thank you so
Oh
much,
my
Megan. If
gosh.
you want to
Of
find
course.
Megan, you can find her on Instagram at Dr. Megan Brown, and at the Mind Mat in Alexandria, in Delray, and here in Arlington. So thank you, my dear. We need to get together in person. The
For that
COVID thing.
cheese, the raclette,
Right, the
raclette
raclettes.
cheese.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
We'll have a whole podcast on raclette.
Oh my gosh, we do. We should definitely put that on video so that people can see it.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.